Hello everyone and welcome to this new quick tips and tricks. In this video I will show you what kind of technique I use to quickly create this thunderstorm. First, what you will need to do is to create a ground. It will help build the scene. Add more detail, more detail, more detail, and no, actually this is good. Now that you are happy with what you have, we can then isolate the ground to make the viewport more faster. We can now start building our lightnings. For that, I use a night scene with a painted HDRI. It will help make the lightning strikes popping up. I also combine it with some fog, but we're gonna see that later. So we don't need to use any crazy V-Ray parameters for now. Even you can disable the GI, because what we want to do is focusing on the lightnings and we will need to run some tests. So for that we will need to use the default preset from V-Ray. Despite the use of the HDRI, I recommend to create some moonlight. What I wanted to do, because I didn't want to have really sharp shadows, so I created a giant light that's gonna simulate kinda of a smooth ambient light. And the most important thing is gonna be a direction. So for this, it's simply by placing the light on the left or on the right of your scene. But give it a really slight bluish tint, and we don't need to go crazy in the intensity. I think 10 is enough. Make sure that the light is set and invisible, because we don't want to see the lights into your sky. We are only using two lights, the HDRI and one of the direction I just did. But as you can see, it's already building up the scene, but it's a little bit too dark in the foreground, so what you want to do is maybe place the light in the foreground and see how it goes. As you can see, it's way better, because now we can see the entire terrain that we just sculpted. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm using the free tools quick renders. It's a free script that you can find online. It's very cool if you want to do some render test and quick preview of what you are doing. It's not acting like the very hearty, but for me the real-time V-Ray was always complicated to use because very unstable, and most of the time you kind of miss some details. So basically what Quick Render is doing is creating and generating its own V-Ray parameters, really simplified and optimized. And when the render is done, it's gonna get back to everything that you entered in V-Ray. If I simplify, it's like working with two V-Ray parameters or presets, one that is really optimized and the second one that is for your final image. It's basically switching between these two parameters. For the lightings, what you want to do first is find really good references. YouTube have a lot of references. It's gonna help you create your animation. Just download the video with any YouTube downloader that you can find online. It's free and it's gonna be really helpful. It's gonna be basically your guide and your Bible. If we go back to the video, I wanted to show you something. The really cool effect that I wanted to reproduce here is, you see how every lightning are flashing everywhere in the video. Like you have one on the left, on the right. What I'm gonna do now is just create 3 dummies to show you the position and the lightning that I wanted to create. One's gonna be on the left, and I'm gonna probably place one on the bottom. If we are in a top views, one on the bottom and one on the kind of top right part. So I wanted to really space out my thunders and lightnings, because I wanted to give the impression that my scene is quite huge, and also that the thunderstorm on top of her head is really huge. To simply create the storm, just duplicate one of the lights you created. In the opposite of the moonlight, because it's a lighting effect, it's gonna act like a spotlight. You don't want to have a giant light. What you want to have instead is a smaller light with a very high intensity, because what you want to do is to have really strong and sharp shadows. Make sure that the light is way more bluish and whitish, because if you look at this reference, you can see that the strikes and lightings effect are really white. We're gonna check the intensity. For the intensity, we're gonna have to do some few tests. For me, what I used is a range between 40 to 100. 40 was the average range for all of my lightnings, but 100 was only used few times when I wanted to have something really quick and crazy looking. The trick is here, because I mentioned earlier the fog, What we're gonna create is a fake glow effect. Don't be worried that your lighting looks really intense, because the fog is gonna spread everything and really calm down your lighting. Make sure that the fog is extending to all of your scene, that is high enough, and don't be shy to the subdivision level as well, because the fog is gonna be really noisy. You can go up to 40, it's gonna be fine. The trick here is to only use the fog on the selected light, because you don't want to have fairy tale looking pictures, and you're gonna also save a lot of render times. So uncheck all of the lights and only add the lighting lights that you want to have a glowy effect on. Make sure one more time that the fog and the light are on, and let's just make a quick render test. The fog is gonna really help you build this kind of glowy effect that is surrounding all of the lightings. Sometime you're gonna have to make sure that the light is not in front of the camera, because we're gonna see it. Unfortunately, the fog makes every light visible, even if it's done invisible. To correct it, you can even also duplicate the light you have and only link the new one to the fog. So by doing that, you're not gonna affect any lighting that you previously did and liked. 40 as an intensity seems to be totally fine for now. We can always go back and change the intensity. It's gonna be really quickly. I'm gonna show you how. What we want to do now is focus on the animation. For all of the references I found online, I noticed that most of the strike and lightning effects go from 10 to 15 frames only. I'm gonna use like 10 frames or 15 maybe as my guide. I'm starting my animation at 20, but feel free to start at 0. It's just I wanted to start a little bit later. If you noticed, what I'm creating now, it's keys. So 20 is 0, it's my starting point. 22, it's 40, it's when my lightning is popping. 23, I'm going back to 20. And 24, I'm going to 35, because if you look at these references, you can see that there is a lot of flashing variations. And what's gonna make your lightning really sexy is if you create some offsets and delays. Let's pretend you have 2 frames that are really close by and crazy in value, like you go from 0 to 40, and then maybe 3 to 4 frames later you go to 0. If you look at my render test, you're gonna see that I'm having these really flashing lights, but when the lighting is going off, it's way more smooth, and that's what makes your lighting way more sexy. The next step is for you to create a new light, or just duplicate this one. What you can do as well is to have only one light for like one strike, and another light that contain like maybe 2, 3 or 4 lightning strikes. Make sure that in the timeline you turn on visible the time range or frame range. By doing that, it's gonna be way more easy for you to move, copy paste the keys, change the intensity, change the values. The idea here is to create as much variations as you want, because it's gonna look weird if you have like 2 lights that look similar. Even if you offset the keys, it's not enough, because you're gonna have one light that's gonna have a certain lightning strikes and the other one's gonna have the same exact lightning strikes. Even if you created an offset and a huge delay in the time frame, you're gonna really recognize that you have the 2 same similar lightning strike. The goal here is to make sure that all of the lights have their own lightning strikes and offsets, timing, intensity. Feel free to duplicate the lights, and the other lights, instead of going to 40 in intensity, you can go to 100. Even these minor changes gonna make the lightning look really different from the previous one. Mostly because the fog is gonna spread way more the 100 intensity lights. What you really want later on is when you have like 3 lights, it starts to create some quick render tests, like animation preset. Really low res, we don't need to go crazy. What you just want to check is the animation, and you want to make sure that none of the lightnings are really similar and are showing at the same time. When you're finally happy with the results and the position of your lightning strikes, the next step will be to refine, change some of the values, maybe even change the timeline of some of the lights. Like for example, what I did is I'm having one average of 40 in intensity, but I also created one lightning strike that is going up to 100. Also, don't forget that to change the intensity of one of the lights, you don't need to go manually to select each keys and change them. What you can do instead is opening the track view or curve editor and just select the keys. Select your light and make sure that in the transformation tools you are in scale values, and now you can just play, and it's gonna be way more easy for you to decrease one of the lights or increase the other lights. And that's it, you have all of your lighting effects. So now what you can do is prepare your renders, and if you are using GI, don't forget to turn on the animation prepares, because with all of the lights animation, your final renders might be a little bit noisy. So now this is when the magic happens. You can open your raw renders in any comp software that you want, could be Blender, Nuke, and even After Effects. You can now find some footage or raw pictures of some lightning strikes that you can use. Export your camera as a 3D object or track the footage that you had with any tracking software that you can have. Make sure that everything is working well together and that there is no offset in the animation. And now you can start to comp your pictures or animation, do some color correction, and even, why not, adding some rain. But it's gonna be for the next tutorial. Remember that you can do everything in 3D. This is the end of this tutorial, I hope you enjoyed it. But before leaving you there, I wanted to remind you to keep batch as much as possible, because you don't want to do 10 times what you already did. I mean, by reusing everything that you did, you're gonna save time, and by saving time, you're gonna save money as well. Anyway, thanks for watching.